Our last speaker in this morning session is from East China Normal University, Professor Jimei. Let's hear her thinking about the implications and inspirations of Angie play on the early childhood education in China. Let's welcome Professor Li. Dear colleagues, dear friends, good morning. Just now, we heard the sharing from the previous three speakers. As the last speaker in this morning, I don't have anything to say. That's my true feeling because they've already said everything. But I feel very honored to be part of this conference. When listening to their sharing, I was really moved. I was really excited. I was really inspired. Actually, I am quite familiar with the Angie play, but every time when I listened to such sharing, every time I feel the same excitement. As an early childhood educator, I feel proud of them. I feel proud of Angie, but while feeling proud, I'm also thinking, what shall we learn from them? The childhood education in China needs to be changed further. We need communications, and we need to further develop our thinking based on the practices of Angie play. Now, the early childhood education in China is standing at a new starting point for revolution and reform, and there are new challenges. Last year is the 40th anniversary of the implementation of reform and opening up policy in China. Based on the development during the 40 years of reform and opening up, we are moving forward. And the early childhood education also faced the same challenge. The government has launched several major national policies. For example, the poverty elimination and the new urbanization construction. These are the major strategies for China. The central government also raised higher requirements towards the early childhood education. In the past half a year, we see the central government launched several policies setting out the requirements towards the early childhood reform. In the document related to the deepening of the reform and opening up, in this document, it sets out that the preschool education in rural areas needs to be developed vigorously, and also a comprehensive public service network for the preschool education in the county and also the town level should be established. China also launched the China Education Modernization 2035 plan. In this plan, it sets out that the pre-education should be fair, balanced, and universally beneficial, as well as with high quality. And the universal coverage of pre-education, preschool education in rural areas will be a very important target. Although we have achieved a lot of progresses in this sector, at the end of 1990s, the preschool education guidelines was issued. And such guidelines have triggered a lot of changes and improvements in the sector. However, now the coverage of the preschool education is not satisfying in China, and the quality is not satisfying as well. You know, the preschool education is actually a very weak point of the chain of our education system, while the rural preschool education is also the weak ring of the preschool education in China.
That is why we value the Angie experience. We need to open up our educational system to the outside world in order to enhance the overall educational expertise. But for us, this is a tremendous task. To achieve all these new era targets, we not only need Angie experiences, we need to understand it deeply. So here I would like to share with you my insights about Angie experience. Angie's experience is not created in the most metropolitan areas of China, not economically most advanced regions in China. It is created in a rural place, a village. We have visited the Angie kindergartens. We can find these village-level kindergartens are so advanced. Wherever I go in Angie, I was so exhilarated. This is a county-level development, and it has won the national first prize. That is a great recognition of the educational achievements. We often believe that rural education in preschool stage is rough and immature. But that is not the case in Angie. Angie has championed an Angie-style education. Today, we have so many preschool educators from home and abroad came here because we are convinced of Angie place. You are not invited because our government sent the order. This grand international conference, attended by so many experts from home and abroad, is unseen elsewhere, anywhere in China. I believe no other places in China can level with Angie in the achievements of preschool education. So it's about time to summarize and crystallize the experiences from Angie. So I would like to summarize some of Angie's experiences. First, I believe Angie plays are championed by some very dedicated and determined leaders, like Madam Cheng Xueqing. They believe and they are convinced that play is the right direction forward. So they have persisted for more than 2 decades. Teachers should learn from children. This is more than a slogan. This is the fundamental belief of Angie teachers. Only driven by this belief can they constantly try to hand over the mastery of play, the agency of play to children. The 2 decades of reform has fundamentally changed the culture in Angie's kindergartens. They have enacted a deep educational reform. Angie has made a wonderful achievement today. All the cases we have visited are results of Angie's decade-long persistence in play-based education. I've been here several times. I visited Angie in 2005, and they have persisted for several years before 2005. At that time, in 2005, we did not have such wonderful conditions. They have so much tools, so much materials. Well, all their materials were bamboos. They used bamboos into rollers. In 2005, children used straws to create dolls' houses, to create dramatic areas. They did not have toys. Today's toys were perfectly unseen by children in that time. They played sands, they played straw, they played bamboos, because teachers were fully convinced of the value of play. People may have the tendency that letting children to play is not as effective as a way of teaching as we teach them directly. But we should believe in the value of play. Only when you are convinced of the value of play can you give freedom to children's play. That's a dozen years ago. What did children play with? Tins, recycled materials, bricks. At that time, children make patterns on the ground, make patterns they love. I was so touched at seeing those patterns from stones on the ground. So today, when we promote this play, we know that many places in China complain that we don't have money, we don't have budget to buy the toys. But they are not excuses. Look at Angie. This is reform. This is reform driven by a strong belief and a determined direction. Now, when we say we engage in reform, we roll up our sleeve and plunge into that endeavor. But I say that, look at Angie. Determination, mission, vision is what leading us forward. Let me share with you my second deep experience. I believe Angie's play is essentially humanized play. Humanized play is human-centered play. It's not about play for advertising. It's not play to attract drama from society or spotlight from society. It's a play about how to promote children's development and teachers' and parents' development. That reminds me of Kant. The ultimate goal of education is to safeguard human dignity, create humans' happiness, and promote humans' development. We have seen their play in person. When a child is full of agency, confidence, mastery over his or her fate, joy. But when teachers don't understand them, when they were under enormous pressure, we complain that teachers are tired of their profession because we are under so much burden. If we still believe in this kind of philosophy, I believe Angie's game, Angie's play will not have a future. Seeing Angie play, that reminds me of Canadians Professor Fan Meilan. Professor Fan say that education is about an obsession with children's growth. And I see in Angie, these are plays that we can be deeply obsessed with children's play. They are doing true plays. And that is implementing true education. Teachers in Angie are happy, and they are not pretending to be happy. No, they are truly happy. I am a keen observer. When their teachers explain to me how their children play, see the joy, see the immense joy of the teachers. If these teachers do not truly love this place, if they are not really engulfed in children's play, they will not be so happy. They told me that children were using recycled materials, recycled pipes, recycled wood materials, doing carpentry, doing plays. If these teachers do not have a sense of their professional pride, if they did not take great pride in their professional practices, they will not be so happy. And that's deriving from the accumulation of their experiences, their practice, their teaching practice. Their teachers are doing a wonderful job. Their teachers really devote their passion and emotion into their work. They are so invested in their work. So in Angie, I see humanized play. And children in play uphold values of love and respect. I believe this wonderful culture is not created by a single agent. It's co-created by children and teacher. I can see the reform in Angie is in line with the essence of preschool education and the inherent requirement of preschool education. There are so many different philosophies, ideas, concepts about preschool education. If you don't have a fundamental belief, you'll be so misled by different schools of thoughts. But in Angie, teachers are very determined of their philosophy and objective. They have a fundamental belief that plays will enlighten children's lives. And that has been highlighted by Ms. Feng Xueqing and others. Everything evolves around play. And all these reflect the fundamental requirement of education. Play reflects the true requirements of education. Play creates an environment to allow children to take control, to be the master of their play, to excite children's true passion for learning. Through play, we can construct wonderful children-teacher relationship. You truly understand that if there's no good relationship between children and teachers, we can't create wonderful preschool education. I'm so amazed by how teachers in Angie have progressed. I can see that teachers here are wonderful. They have a great sense of happiness from their professional practice. They made great strides in their professional development. If they learn this thing or that thing, they won't learn much. But their professional learning is studying children, researching children. So we need to understand children. The basic professional development for teacher is to research children. When we give full attention to children's learning, we will see that we will not be bound by the so-called formalities. We will be able to understand children's deep learning and comprehensive and organic learning in children's development. We will not teach by the 5 developmental areas. We will understand that children are pursuing true learning irrespective of what developmental areas that is taking place. If you don't know children are learning comprehensively, that's because you don't use your eyes to see. You don't observe keenly. As long as children have agency over their learning, It could be an indoor or an outdoor activity. And some activity can be conversation with children or reading books. And that doesn't have to happen only indoors. It could happen under a tree, in the shades, in a garden. There's no spatial limit as to where our project, our activities can take place. Deep learning calls for change in our teaching. We can no longer implement mechanical education. Nothing combines us. The deep learning happens everywhere. It's not limited by space or time. That is why I believe preschool education in Angie really conforms with the fundamental requirements of scientific preschool education. Angie plays take advantage of large number of risky plays, challenging plays, so children are able to construct in many different languages. Deep learning can be rolling tires. Professor Hua and Cheng Xueqing's images and videos all illustrate how deep learning can take place in a play. So we must learn from Angie. If preschool education reform should proceed, we should come to the basics. We should come to the fundamentals. We should not be confused by the superficial schools of thought or different modules of learning. We should come to the essence, come to the basics.
Angie play is also closely related to the development of the society and the community. This is quite rare all over China. Just now, Ms. Cheng Xueqing mentioned that it's important to create good ecology of education. So Angie play is not created by a team of professionals with a door closed, and they didn't create such system just by themselves. They are not creating it with door closed. Actually, this kind of approach is deeply rooted in the development of the local community and the local society. Through the change in the childhood education philosophy, actually the mindset of the parents are changed as well. The kindergarten are working together with the parents, the families, the community. The community and the kindergartens are existing in a harmonious way and supporting each other. This is a very good ecology, and this is not a very easy task. A decade ago, when I visited here, the scale at that time of Angie play was very limited. And at that time, Ms. Cheng Xueqing brought me to a very small kindergarten, which was shown in the picture just now. And then at that time, I was very moved. And I still remembered the head of that village at that time said to me, "Oh, Ms. Chen, we really thank the early childhood education kindergarten. We really thank the kindergarten, and we really thank the teachers because the kindergarten actually brings our village forward." I used to say that education should be a positive power for the society development. And at that time, this sounded very abstract. But I believe that MG play actually substantiates my thinking. That is, to allow the education plays a positive role in the society. And then I feel very surprised that because you know the parents of the children in Angie County are mainly farmers, and I am surprised that they don't require the kindergarten to teach the literacy and the numeracy, and I'm surprised that they don't complain to the kindergarten saying that why don't you teach my children learn how to write, how to count, and how to read. And then Ms. Chen told me that this didn't happen at the very beginning. The mindsets of the parents and the community and also the government are changing step by step. So I feel this is a significant achievement. This is not something you can copy very easily. Now, all over China, many kindergartens are trying to learning from Angie Play. What they have got probably are only materials of Angie Play, those ladders, those planks. However, if learning are only limited at these materials, then it's only at the surface. I think what is more important is to improve the quality of the early childhood education and got the essence of Angie Play. Education should be the green driving force for the society. I believe that Angie Play could be a very good case for us to learn from to guide our next step in the reform of early childhood education. Actually, all their kindergartens, all the Angie kindergartens reflect the progresses we have achieved in building up the new rural areas. And such kindergartens should be part of the community and should be part of the construction of the modern civilization of our society, and should also be part of our economic and social development. Angie Play is deeply integrated with all these different areas. Education is not limited to school. Education is a driving force for the nation to move forward. So I believe that we need to allow the early childhood education to play a bigger role in the society. These photos showed you how the parents change their mindsets, how the parents become part of the team supporting the children's learning. Fifthly, I believe that Angie is excellent in reaching out into the international community, and this for this part, we probably haven't really seen any other places in China that can do this good, this well. But of course, that doesn't mean every places need to invite international guests or international researchers to come here to do studies. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the whole international community is attracted by the spirit and the thinking of Angie Play, that is to allow the children to play, allow the children to develop freely, and they created such a unique environment for early childhood education. And such practice is in line with the value of the early childhood community in the world. And this kind of common value attracted the attention of the international community. So Angie started with local practices, and then they opened to the world. Now Angie has a very wide and broad international perspective. They learn from the world and communicate with the international community. You probably are already very familiar with that. Through equal dialogues and communications and exchanges, Angie Play is going global. And this can be regarded as a milestone for China. In the past, in early childhood education, it's pure import. That means we purely learn from overseas community. We only And in the past, we can only use international cases to talk about some theories, but now we have sufficient local cases to demonstrate the theory. And anti-play also spreads to international community. That means we've already entered a stage that we can also export some thinkings overseas instead of purely importing overseas thinking into China. Angie's stories are very moving. Every time when I listen to Angie play stories, I feel very inspired. Angie people are contributing their strengths and their expertise to the world. China is also trying to make our own contribution in supporting the whole international community to develop. And I believe Angie is a good example. Of course, my reflections are not sufficient. I would look forward to listening to your reflections as well. I hope that Angie Play could actually serve as a leader facilitating the development of kindergartens in rural areas. And we can then eliminate the practices that try to implement primary school curriculum in the kindergarten. This kind of practice is for sure wrong. With this kind of new Angie Play approach, we will be able to achieve the target for preschool education in the new era. Next, I would like to quote from the statement of President Xi in his speech in the Early Childhood Education Conference last year. We should have a higher historical perspective and a wider international vision, more in-depth strategic thinking. We should be deeply rooted in China when developing the education, and we should develop our education with people as our center. Thank you. That's my hope for Angie. Thank you, Professor Li Jimei, for your fantastic sharing. Professor Li shared about Angie Play from a more macro and a broad perspective. She looked at Angie Play from the perspective of the national macro reform and the development. She also proposed a direction for our future development. Angie could serve as a model to facilitate the comprehensive development of early childhood education.